Jasmine Washington stared at her phone in disbelief as the notification flashed across the screen. Confirmed, all executives at Premium Airlines customer service department terminated, effective immediately. Her twin brother Jordan leaned over, eyes widening. "We actually did it," he whispered. The twins exchanged a look that carried the weight of their 8-hour battle for dignity and respect in Premium Airlines' first-class cabin. Before we dive into this incredible story, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe to join our community of truth seekers who believe in accountability and justice. Now, let's rewind 8 hours to see how this all began. Jasmine and Jordan Washington had become accustomed to turning heads when they walked into rooms. At 28, the twins had carved out impressive careers despite facing obstacles at every turn. Jasmine had established herself as one of Atlanta's most formidable civil rights attorneys, winning landmark cases against corporate giants for discrimination in hiring practices. Jordan, equally ambitious, had founded Tech Equity, a startup focused on bringing technology education to underserved communities. His innovative approach had attracted major investors, turning his passion project into a multi-million-dollar enterprise within 3 years. Today's flight to Los Angeles wasn't just another business trip. Jordan was scheduled to deliver the keynote address at the National Technology Innovation Summit, where industry leaders would gather to discuss the future of tech. This speech represented a pivotal moment in his career, an opportunity to advocate for diversity in an industry notorious for its homogeneity. "You nervous about tomorrow?" Jasmine asked as they navigated through Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, rolling their carry-on luggage behind them. Jordan adjusted his glasses, a habit from childhood that surfaced whenever he felt pressure. "A little. There'll be over 2,000 people there, including CEOs from every major tech company." "You'll crush it," Jasmine assured him, her confidence in her brother unwavering. "Just like you crushed the algorithm that got us these Diamond Elite status memberships." The twins shared a laugh. Their frequent business travel had earned them Premium Airlines' highest-tier status, Diamond Elite, a level that less than 0.5% of the airline's customers achieved. The status came with significant perks: priority boarding, extra luggage allowance, exclusive lounge access, and guaranteed first-class upgrades when available. Jasmine pulled out her phone and began recording as they approached the Premium Airlines check-in counter. "Day 1 of our LA business trip vlog," she narrated. "Documenting Black excellence in corporate America, one journey at a time." Her social media series had gained traction over the past year, showcasing successful Black professionals navigating predominantly white spaces. It served as inspiration for young Black students uncertain about their own potential in corporate environments. At the check-in counter, a petite blonde woman named Heather glanced up at them with a plastered-on smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Good morning. Checking in for Premium Airlines Flight 237 to Los Angeles," Jordan said, handing over their IDs and confirmation numbers. Heather's fingers clacked against the keyboard. "I'll need to see your Diamond Elite membership cards as well," she said without looking up. Jasmine and Jordan exchanged a quick glance. This request was unusual. Their status was linked to their frequent flyer accounts and automatically displayed in the system. "That's not typically required," Jasmine said calmly, "but here they are." She produced both cards from her wallet. Heather examined the cards with unusual scrutiny, turning them over and even holding one up to the light as if checking for a watermark. "Just being thorough," she explained with a tight smile. "We've had issues with fraudulent status claims recently." After several more minutes of verification, they finally received their boarding passes for seats 1A and 1B, the most premium positions in first class. The next subtle indication of bias came at the Diamond Elite Lounge. As they settled into plush chairs with complimentary champagne, an older white man in an expensive suit did a double-take. He approached a lounge attendant and spoke in a hushed tone while glancing in their direction. The attendant then made her way over to the twins. "Pardon me," she said with forced politeness, "but may I verify your lounge access?" Jordan set his champagne down. "Is there a problem?" "No problem at all. Just routine verification." Her eyes flickered to the white man who was watching the interaction intently. Jasmine placed her boarding pass and elite card on the table without a word. Jordan did the same. "Thank you," the attendant said after checking their credentials. She did not approach any other guests for routine verification. "Still recording?" Jordan murmured to his sister once the attendant left. Jasmine nodded almost imperceptibly, her phone positioned on her lap, capturing everything. "Always. This is exactly why I started the vlog series. People need to see what this looks like." What neither of them knew was how much worse things would get once they boarded their flight, and how that flight would ultimately change the course of their lives and the culture of an entire airline. "Now boarding our Diamond Elite members and first-class passengers for Premium Airlines Flight 237 to Los Angeles," announced the gate agent. Jasmine and Jordan gathered their belongings and approached the priority lane. They presented their boarding passes to the smiling gate agent who waved them through with a cheerful, "Enjoy your flight." The twins made their way down the jet bridge, Jordan reviewing notes for his keynote speech on his tablet while Jasmine continued subtly recording for her vlog. As Diamond Elite members sitting in first class, they were among the first passengers to board. 1A and 1B, Jordan confirmed as they reached the front of the aircraft. The seats were spacious, offering ample legroom and positioned directly behind the bulkhead. They stored their carry-ons in the overhead compartments and settled in. "Would you like a pre-departure beverage?" offered a flight attendant to the white couple seated across the aisle. She then moved on without acknowledging the twins. "Typical," Jasmine whispered to Jordan, who shrugged it off, already immersed in his presentation. 10 minutes into the boarding process, a flight attendant with "Bradley Reynolds" on his name tag approached them. His posture was stiff, his expression uncomfortable as he leaned down. "Excuse me," Bradley said, his voice lowered. "There seems to be a seating issue. Are you sure you're in the correct seats?" Jordan looked up from his tablet. "Yes, 1A and 1B. It's printed right here on our boarding passes." He held up the document for confirmation. Bradley barely glanced at it. "Well, there appears to be a mix-up. These seats are reserved for our VIP passengers. We are Diamond Elite members," Jasmine stated firmly. "And our boarding passes clearly assign us these seats." Bradley's lips thinned. "Let me check the manifest again." As he walked away, the boarding process continued. A well-dressed white couple in their 50s arrived, stopping at the twins' row with evident confusion. "I believe you're in our seats," said the man, whose expensive watch and tailored suit conveyed affluence and entitlement. "I'm Richard Whitman, and this is my wife Catherine. 1A and 1B should be ours." Before Jasmine or Jordan could respond, Bradley reappeared, now flanked by another flight attendant whose name tag read Melissa Turner. "There's our flight attendant now," Richard said with obvious relief. "There seems to be a mistake with our seating." Bradley turned to the twins. "As I mentioned, there appears to be a seating error. Mr. and Mrs. Whitman are assigned to these premium seats. We'll need to relocate you." "That's not possible," Jordan replied, maintaining his composure. "Our boarding passes clearly state 1A and 1B, and we've already been seated." "Perhaps you were upgraded by mistake," Bradley suggested, speaking unusually slowly as if they might have difficulty understanding. "These premium positions are typically reserved for our long-standing VIP passengers." Jasmine felt her professional demeanor slipping. "We are Diamond Elite members who booked these specific seats weeks ago. We're not moving based on an assumption that we don't belong here." Catherine Whitman sighed loudly. "We're going to be late for our connection if this isn't resolved quickly." Bradley lowered his voice further. "We can move you to economy comfort section with extra legroom. It would be more appropriate and help us depart on time." "More appropriate?" Jasmine repeated, her lawyer instincts kicking in. She noticed several passengers around them had begun recording the interaction on their phones. "Please clarify what you mean by that statement." Melissa intervened. "What my colleague means is that these particular seats were specially arranged for the Whitmans due to their status. And what status would that be? Jordan asked pointedly. Because we're Diamond Elite, the highest tier in your frequent flyer program. Bradley's face flushed. I'll need to see proof of your Diamond Elite status. Jordan produced his membership card for the second time that day. You'll also find it linked to our tickets in your system. These could be printed anywhere, Bradley muttered, examining the cards with unnecessary scrutiny. I'll need to verify these with the gate agent. This is absolutely ridiculous, Jasmine stated, no longer bothering to hide her frustration. You haven't even checked your system to see if we're correctly seated, which we are. Instead, you've automatically assumed we don't belong here. The confrontation had now drawn the attention of nearly everyone in first class. The Whitmans remained standing in the aisle, causing a bottleneck in the boarding process. Is there a problem here? The authoritative voice belonged to a man in a pilot's uniform who had emerged from the cockpit. Captain Harris, Melissa began, we have a seating discrepancy with these passengers occupying the Whitmans' premium seats. Captain Kenneth Harris surveyed the situation. We need to resolve this quickly. We're already behind schedule. I agree, said Jasmine, opening the airline's app on her phone. Here are our confirmed seat assignments, our Diamond Elite status verification, and the timestamp showing when we selected these exact seats 3 weeks ago. She handed her phone to the captain. I'm also a civil rights attorney, and I recognize discriminatory treatment when I experience it. Captain Harris examined the information, his expression shifting from annoyance to concern. He pulled out his tablet and tapped through several screens. Ms. and Mr. Washington are indeed correctly seated in 1A and 1B, he confirmed after a moment. He turned to the Whitmans. Mr. and Mrs. Whitman, your assigned seats are actually 2C and 2D. There appears to have been a miscommunication. Richard Whitman's face reddened. But we always get bulkhead seats. Bradley assured us when we called yesterday. Sir, Captain Harris interrupted firmly, your boarding passes clearly show 2C and 2D. Those are still excellent first-class seats, just one row back. We need to complete boarding immediately. Catherine Whitman huffed as they reluctantly moved to their assigned seats. Bradley avoided eye contact with the twins, while Melissa forced a tight smile. My apologies for the confusion, Captain Harris said to Jasmine and Jordan before returning to the cockpit. As the remaining passengers boarded, the tension in first class was palpable. Jasmine discreetly continued recording, capturing Bradley's obvious discomfort whenever he passed their seats and the whispers exchanged between him and Melissa. The aircraft door closed, and the safety demonstration began. What should have been the start of a routine flight had already become an incident that would soon spiral far beyond what anyone on board could have anticipated. As the aircraft pushed back from the gate, Jasmine turned to Jordan, keeping her voice low. Did you notice how quickly they assumed we were in the wrong seats? Jordan nodded, his expression grim. Not the first time, won't be the last. But we're not letting this slide. The initial confrontation had set a distinct tone for their flight experience. During the safety demonstration, Bradley avoided eye contact with the twins, while focusing attentively on other first-class passengers. When it came time for drink service, Melissa approached their row. What can I get you? She asked, her customer service smile firmly in place but not reaching her eyes. Sparkling water for me, Jordan replied. I'd like orange juice, no ice, Jasmine said. And I'd also like to know if it's standard Premium Airlines procedure to challenge passengers' seating assignments based on appearance rather than checking your system first. Melissa's smile faltered. I apologize for any misunderstanding. We were simply trying to resolve a seating issue. A misunderstanding that somehow only happened to us, Jordan observed. Interesting. Melissa quickly moved on to other passengers. Across the aisle, Richard Whitman was speaking to Bradley in hushed tones, occasionally glancing toward the twins. They're still talking about us, Jordan murmured. Jasmine activated her phone's voice recorder under her tray table. Documentation is everything. This isn't just about us anymore. 20 minutes after takeoff, Captain Harris emerged from the cockpit, making his way to the first-class lavatory. On his return, he paused beside the twin seats. "I want to personally apologize for the confusion earlier," he said quietly. "That's not how we typically handle seating arrangements." "With all due respect, Captain Harris," Jasmine replied, "what happened wasn't confusion. Your flight attendants made assumptions about where we belonged based solely on our appearance, and they were prepared to move us despite our valid tickets." The captain shifted uncomfortably. "I can assure you that Premium Airlines does not condone discriminatory treatment of any kind. If you feel you were mistreated, I encourage you to speak with our customer service team." "We absolutely will," Jordan assured him. "But I'm curious, would you have intervened if we had simply complied and moved to economy like your flight attendant suggested?" Captain Harris hesitated. "I would hope that proper verification procedures would have been followed regardless." "Hope isn't policy, Captain," Jasmine noted. "And procedures clearly weren't followed here." After the captain returned to the cockpit, Bradley approached with their drinks, placing them on the tray tables without a word. Jasmine caught his eye. "Mr. Reynolds, I'd like to understand why you assumed we were in the wrong seats without checking your system first." Bradley's professional demeanor cracked slightly. "Mrs. Whitman is a very loyal customer who always sits in the bulkhead row. I was trying to accommodate." "So loyal that she doesn't know her assigned seats?" Jordan interrupted. "And it's Ms. Washington, not Mrs. I'm her brother, not her husband." "My mistake," Bradley said stiffly. "One of several today," Jasmine pointed out. "We'd like to speak with your customer service manager upon landing." "Of course," Bradley replied, retreating quickly. The twins spent the next hour discussing their approach. Jasmine, drawing on her legal background, outlined specific policy violations while Jordan documented every interaction on his tablet. "Remember that discrimination case against Regional Air last year?" Jasmine asked. "The one where they kept randomly selecting passengers of color for additional screening?" Jordan recalled. "Exactly. They claimed those were isolated incidents until passengers started comparing experiences on social media. Turned out it was systematic. As the flight progressed, other passengers began to take notice. A young black woman from business class stopped by their row on her way to the lavatory. "I saw what happened during boarding," she whispered. "I've experienced similar treatment on premium flights. Let me know if you need another witness." An older white gentleman across the aisle leaned over after she left. "I fly premium every week, and I've seen this kind of thing before. What they did wasn't right. I recorded most of the interaction if you need it." By the time lunch was served, Jasmine and Jordan had collected contact information from 4 passengers willing to corroborate their experience. What had begun as a personal affront was evolving into something much larger, a potential case that could expose a pattern of discrimination at one of the country's largest airlines. "They picked the wrong passengers to mess with," Jordan muttered as he reviewed his notes. "They absolutely did," Jasmine agreed, her determination hardening. "By the time we land in LA, we'll have a comprehensive plan of action." What the flight crew didn't realize was that the Washington twins possessed not only the legal expertise to challenge discriminatory treatment but also the platforms and connections to ensure their voices would be heard. The 3 remaining hours of Flight 237 wouldn't be just travel time, they would be preparation for a confrontation that would ultimately shake Premium Airlines to its core. Midway through the flight, the difference in service became unmistakable. While the Whitmans received attentive care, Bradley stopping by frequently to check on their needs and Melissa offering them additional drinks without being asked, the Washington twins experienced a noticeable chill. Their call button went unanswered for 15 minutes when Jordan requested another sparkling water. When Melissa finally responded, her explanation about being busy in economy class rang hollow as she had been visible in the first-class cabin the entire time. "Are you still recording?" Jordan asked quietly as Melissa walked away. Jasmine nodded subtly. "Documenting every interaction. The contrast in service is actually making our case stronger." Jordan leaned back in his seat, the excitement about his keynote address now overshadowed by the incident. "I'm trying to focus on my presentation, but I keep thinking about how many other black passengers have experienced this without the resources or platform to fight back." "That's exactly why we need to take action," Jasmine replied, lowering her voice. "Think about all the young professionals who follow your tech journey or my legal advocacy work. What message does it send if we just let this slide?" Jordan considered this. "You're right. But I'm torn about how to proceed. A formal complaint? Social media? Legal action?" Jasmine's expression grew thoughtful. "Maybe all of the above. This isn't just about one bad flight attendant. The fact that multiple crew members defaulted to the same assumption suggests something systematic." They fell silent as Bradley passed by, deliberately avoiding eye contact. Once he was out of earshot, Jasmine continued. "Remember when we were starting out? All those conferences where people assumed I was support staff rather than a presenter? Or how investors would direct questions to your white colleagues even when you were the founder?" Jordan nodded, memories of countless microaggressions surfacing. "The tech industry's not much better. Last month at the Seattle conference, someone asked if I was part of the catering team, while I was wearing a presenter badge and setting up at the keynote podium." "Exactly. And how many times did we doubt ourselves or stay quiet because we didn't want to be labeled difficult?" Jasmine asked. "Too many," Jordan admitted. Jasmine pulled out her laptop. "Premium Airlines has in-flight Wi-Fi. Let's use it." As Jordan outlined key points for his keynote speech, occasionally jotting down notes about their current situation, Jasmine began crafting a detailed email to Thomas Walker, CEO of Premium Airlines. Her legal training shone through in the precise language, documenting specific actions, times, and verbatim quotes from the confrontation. "Listen to this," she said, reading a paragraph from her draft. "The discriminatory treatment we experience today reflects either a failure in training or, more concerning, a culture that normalizes assumptions based on racial bias. As Diamond Elite members who have chosen Premium Airlines for over 80% of our considerable business travel, we expect not just an acknowledgement of this incident but concrete steps to address any systemic issues." "Strong," Jordan approved. "Are you adding the part about them trying to move us to economy?" "Absolutely. Along with the fact that they never once checked the system before challenging our seating." Jordan looked up from his tablet. "I'm also researching Premium's history with similar complaints. Look at this forum thread from 8 months ago." The thread contained dozens of accounts from black and brown passengers describing similar experiences on premium flights, from being asked to move from premium seats to having their elite status questioned or receiving visibly inferior service. "This is bigger than us," Jasmine realized, scrolling through the accounts. "Much bigger." She continued refining her email to the CEO while Jordan expanded his search, uncovering several social media threads where passengers of color had shared comparable experiences with Premium Airlines. None had gained significant traction individually, but collectively, they painted a disturbing pattern. "Sent," Jasmine announced finally, closing her laptop. "Direct to Thomas Walker, with copies to their legal department and customer relations. Let's see how they respond." Jordan glanced at his watch. 3 more hours until we land. "Want to bet whether anyone from Premium Management contacts us before then?" Jasmine smiled grimly. "I wouldn't count on it. Companies like this are skilled at containing situations by routing complaints through layers of customer service representatives trained to offer placating responses without addressing root issues." "Well, they haven't dealt with the Washington twins before," Jordan remarked. "Are you still with me on this journey? I'd love to hear your thoughts." Comment 1, if you've ever experienced or witnessed discrimination while traveling, or 2, if you believe companies should be held accountable for the actions of their employees. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to support more stories of justice and accountability. What do you think will happen when the twins land in Los Angeles? Will Premium Airlines take their complaints seriously, or will they try to sweep it under the rug? Let's find out as our story continues. The aircraft began its descent into Los Angeles International Airport, the captain's voice crackling over the intercom with the standard arrival information. Then came an unusual addition: "Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to personally apologize for any confusion during the boarding process today. Premium Airlines is committed to providing excellent service to all our passengers, and we regret any inconvenience experienced." Jasmine and Jordan exchanged knowing glances. This unscheduled apology suggested their email had already made an impact. "Damage control," Jordan murmured. "Too little, too late," Jasmine replied, packing away her laptop. As the plane touched down and taxied to the gate, Bradley and Melissa maintained their distance, providing the bare minimum service required. When the seatbelt sign finally turned off, Bradley made a pointed announcement: "Premium Airlines would like to thank you for flying with us today. Diamond Elite members and passengers requiring special assistance may deplane first." The emphasis on Diamond Elite members felt deliberately pointed. Gathering their belongings, Jasmine and Jordan made their way toward the exit. Bradley stood by the door, his professional smile firmly in place but eyes carefully avoiding theirs. "Thank you for flying Premium Airlines," Melissa recited mechanically as they passed. "We'll be in touch," Jasmine replied, her tone making it clear this wasn't a casual goodbye. As they emerged from the jet bridge, the twins were surprised to find a man in a Premium Airlines uniform holding a sign with their names. He was black, approximately in his mid-30s, with a name tag reading Dominic Williams, Guest Services Manager. "Ms. and Mr. Washington," he greeted them. "I'm Dominic Williams from Premium Airlines Guest Services. I'd like to personally welcome you to Los Angeles. May I speak with you privately for a moment?" They followed Dominic to a quiet corner of the gate area, away from the deplaning passengers. "First, I want to sincerely apologize for your experience on today's flight," Dominic began. "I was briefed about the situation, and it's not consistent with our service standards." "Interesting," Jasmine noted. "How exactly were you briefed so quickly?" "Our flight just landed." Dominic hesitated. "Your email to CEO Walker was flagged as high priority. I received instructions to meet your flight specifically." "That was fast," Jordan observed. "Does Premium Airlines always respond this promptly to customer complaints?" Dominic lowered his voice. "Not typically, no. But your case has particular considerations." "You mean we're both black professionals with significant social media followings and legal expertise?" Jasmine asked pointedly. Dominic glanced around before responding. "Off the record?" "Yes. But also because what happened was wrong and should never have occurred." He paused, seeming to make a decision. "Look, I've been with Premium for 7 years. What happened to you today isn't isolated. We've gathered that much from our research," Jordan said. "It's more prevalent than you think," Dominic continued. "I've documented at least 27 similar incidents in the past year just at LAX, black and brown passengers having their premium status questioned or being asked to move for white passengers. I've reported it up the chain multiple times." "And the response?" Jasmine asked. "Training sessions that change nothing, temporary reassignments of problematic staff, and lots of talking points about isolated incidents and misunderstandings." Dominic's frustration was evident. "Nothing systemic ever changes. Why are you telling us this?" Jordan asked. "You could be risking your job." "Because I'm tired of watching it happen," Dominic admitted. "And because you might actually have the platform to make Premium take this seriously." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. "My personal contact information is on the back. I have documentation if you decide to pursue this further." "We appreciate this, Dominic," Jasmine said, pocketing the card. "The company has authorized me to offer you both upgrade vouchers for your next flights and additional elite qualifying miles as compensation," he added in a more official tone. "We're not interested in vouchers," Jordan stated firmly. "We want accountability and systemic change." "I understand completely," Dominic replied. For official purposes, I'll note that you declined the initial compensation offer pending further review of the incident. They parted ways, with Dominic heading back to the terminal and the twins proceeding to baggage claim. Well, that was unexpected, Jordan said as they walked. Not really, Jasmine countered. They're in damage control mode. Sending a black employee to handle us is part of the strategy. Though Dominic seemed genuinely concerned. Agreed. And potentially a valuable ally. As they collected their checked luggage, Jasmine's phone buzzed with notifications. The email she'd sent from the plane had been forwarded to Premium's executive team and their legal department. Meanwhile, Jordan's phone was lighting up with messages from the conference organizers, checking on their arrival. We should head straight to the hotel for the organizers' welcome reception, Jordan suggested, checking the time. Absolutely, Jasmine agreed. This situation is important, but your keynote is still the priority for this trip. At the Westwood Grand Hotel, they were greeted warmly by the conference team. Malia Chen, the event coordinator, approached them immediately. Jordan, Jasmine. We're so glad you made it. How was your flight? Jordan and Jasmine exchanged glances. Actually, we had quite an experience, Jordan began, giving her a condensed version of the incident. Malia's expression grew serious. That's completely unacceptable. Several of our speakers and attendees are flying Premium since they're a conference sponsor. I should inform the organizing committee. Premium Airlines is a sponsor? Jasmine asked, the implications immediately clear. Gold level, Malia confirmed. They have a booth in the expo hall and their VP of Customer Experience is on tomorrow's industry panel about elevating the travel experience for tech professionals. Jordan couldn't help but laugh at the irony. Well, I certainly had an elevated experience today, just not in the way they intended. As they entered the reception area, several attendees recognized Jordan from his profile in Tech Innovator magazine. While he engaged in professional networking, Jasmine noticed her social media notifications multiplying rapidly. Checking her phone, she discovered that one of the passengers from their flight had posted a video of the boarding confrontation. The clip had already been shared thousands of times with the hashtag #DiamondButtDisrespected. Comments were pouring in from other travelers sharing similar experiences with Premium and other airlines. Jasmine showed the viral post to Jordan between conversations. Things are moving faster than we anticipated, she noted. Good, Jordan replied. The conference organizers are already discussing how to address this, especially given Premium sponsorship. Malia says several tech companies have corporate contracts with them. By the time they retired to their rooms that evening, the incident had evolved from a personal affront into a public relations crisis for Premium Airlines. The groundwork had been laid for what would become one of the most significant corporate accountability stories in the airline industry, and the Washington twins were just getting started. The next morning, Jasmine woke to her phone buzzing incessantly. Squinting at the screen, she found dozens of notifications, messages, and emails. The video of their confrontation had exploded overnight, amassing over 2 million views across various platforms. #DiamondButtDisrespected was trending nationally. Jordan, she called, knocking on the connecting door between their hotel rooms. You need to see this. Jordan emerged, already dressed for his keynote speech but looking concerned. What's happening? Premium Airlines issued a statement, Jasmine said, reading from her phone. Premium Airlines is aware of a video circulating on social media regarding an interaction on Flight 237. We take all passenger concerns seriously and are investigating the matter internally. Premium Airlines has a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination of any kind, and we are committed to providing excellent service to all our valued customers. Jordan scoffed. Generic corporate non-apology. They don't even acknowledge what actually happened. It gets better, Jasmine continued scrolling. We've been invited to appear on Good Morning Los Angeles's in 2 hours. They want us to respond to Premium's statement live on air. Today. But my keynote is at 2 p.m. The segment would be at 8:30 a.m. We'd have plenty of time to get back for your speech. Jordan considered this. A national morning show would significantly amplify the conversation. Exactly. And Premium clearly hopes this generic statement will make the story disappear. We can't let that happen. They quickly accepted the invitation. While preparing for the interview, Jasmine received an email from Dominic with additional information. Bradley Reynolds had 3 previous complaints about similar treatment of minority passengers, all of which had been resolved with simple retraining sessions. 2 hours later, they sat under the bright lights of the GMLA studio, the hosts introducing the story that had taken social media by storm overnight. Joining us now are Jasmine Washington, a civil rights attorney, and her twin brother Jordan Washington, CEO of Tech Equity, who experienced this troubling incident firsthand, announced the host. Thank you both for being here on such short notice. Thank you for having us, Jasmine replied. Let's start with the basics, the host continued. What exactly happened on that Premium Airlines flight? The twins recounted the incident clearly and factually, emphasizing that the flight attendants had never checked the system before challenging their seating and had immediately assumed they didn't belong in first class. And Premium Airlines has issued this statement, the host said, displaying the company's response on screen. What's your reaction to their response? It's disappointingly vague, Jordan stated. There's no acknowledgement of the actual discrimination that occurred, no mention of the specific actions their employees took, and no concrete steps for addressing the issue. This isn't just about one flight or 2 passengers, Jasmine added. Since this incident went public, we've received hundreds of messages from other passengers of color who've experienced similar treatment on premium flights. This points to a systemic problem that requires systemic solutions. What would those solutions look like? Asked the co-host. Transparent investigation and accountability, Jasmine replied without hesitation. Meaningful diversity training that goes beyond checking boxes. Clear protocols that require verification before challenging passengers. And most importantly, a cultural shift within the company that addresses the implicit biases that led to this incident. The interview continued for 10 minutes, with the twins articulating their points calmly and compellingly. As they wrapped up, the host noted that Premium Airlines stock had dropped 3% in pre-market trading following the viral video. Back at the hotel, the conference organizers had called an emergency meeting. Premium's executives were demanding equal time to respond, while several major tech companies were threatening to withdraw their sponsorships if the airline remained affiliated with the event. Your keynote is still on schedule, Malia assured Jordan. But there's been a development. The conference committee has agreed to add a last-minute panel discussion on diversity and inclusion in corporate travel tomorrow. They'd like you both to participate, along with representatives from Premium and other industry leaders. Interesting pivot, Jasmine noted. Has Premium agreed to this format? They're pushing back, but they don't have much choice, Malia explained. 3 major tech companies have already suspended their corporate contracts with Premium pending the outcome of this situation. As Jordan prepared for his keynote address, Jasmine received another bombshell, an anonymous email containing internal communications from Premium Airlines customer service department. The emails revealed discussions about handling perception issues when Diamond Elite members don't fit the typical profile. One particularly damning exchange included a manager instructing representatives to apply additional verification steps for unexpected elite passengers. Jordan, we need to revise your speech, Jasmine said urgently, showing him the leaked emails. Jordan scanned the messages, his expression hardening. This changes everything. When Jordan took the stage that afternoon, the packed auditorium fell silent. Instead of beginning with his planned remarks about technology accessibility, he addressed the elephant in the room. I came here today to talk about breaking down barriers in technology, he began. But in the past 24 hours, I've been reminded that some barriers remain firmly in place, even for those who've achieved traditional markers of success. He recounted their experience briefly, then pivoted to the broader implications. What happened to us yesterday isn't about comfortable seats or premium service. It's about belonging. about who is automatically assumed to be in their rightful place and who must constantly justify their presence. As Jordan spoke, a notification appeared on Jasmine's phone. Another video had surfaced, showing the Whitmans speaking to Bradley before boarding, apparently arranging to get the bulkhead seats despite their actual assignments. Meanwhile, Premium Airlines damage control was failing spectacularly. Their VP of Customer Experience, scheduled to speak at the conference, had abruptly cancelled. Their stock continued to decline as major corporate clients publicly announced reviews of their travel contracts. The most devastating blow came that evening when a national news program aired an investigative segment featuring interviews with former Premium employees who confirmed a pattern of discriminatory practices. One former flight attendant revealed they were informally trained to provide extra verification for minority passengers in premium cabins. By the time Thomas Walker, Premium CEO, finally called the twins personally, the company was in full crisis mode. But instead of the conciliatory tone they expected, Walker was defensive. "While I regret your negative experience," he began, "I think this situation has been blown out of proportion. Every airline occasionally has seating confusion." "This wasn't confusion, Mr. Walker," Jasmine countered. "This was discrimination, and your initial response proves you still don't understand the severity of the issue. We've offered generous compensation." "We're not interested in vouchers or miles," Jordan interrupted. "We want accountability and structural change." "What exactly are you looking for?" Walker asked, his frustration evident. "A complete overhaul of your training protocols," Jasmine began. "Independent audit of customer complaints with demographic analysis. Transparent reporting of discrimination incidents. And concrete consequences for employees who engage in biased behavior." "That's completely unreasonable for one isolated." "It's not isolated," Jordan stated firmly. "And we have the documentation to prove it." The call ended abruptly, with Walker promising to consider their feedback. But the damage was done. By taking a dismissive stance, Premium CEO had only fueled the growing controversy. That night, Jordan modified his keynote speech for the following day's presentation. What had begun as a talk about technology access had evolved into a powerful statement about corporate responsibility and the real-world impacts of bias. As videos of the confrontation continued to spread and more passengers came forward with similar stories, it became clear that Premium Airlines faced not just a PR crisis, but a reckoning that would reshape the company's future. By the third day of the conference, the Premium Airlines controversy had evolved from a viral social media moment to a full-blown corporate crisis. The hashtag #DiamondButtDisrespected had generated over 50 million impressions, with celebrities, politicians, and business leaders weighing in. Premium stock had plummeted 12%, erasing nearly $2.3 billion in market value. Jasmine's legal instincts told her this was the perfect moment to intensify pressure. While Jordan prepared for his panel discussion, she assembled a small team of volunteers, 3 attorneys attending the conference and 2 data analysts, to begin a more formal investigation into Premium's practices. "We need to establish a pattern," she explained to the impromptu task force gathered in a hotel conference room. "Individual incidents can be dismissed as misunderstandings, but statistical evidence of systemic discrimination is much harder to ignore." They set up a secure online portal where Premium passengers could confidentially share their experiences. Within hours, they had received over 200 submissions, many with supporting documentation including boarding passes, correspondence with customer service, and video recordings. Meanwhile, Dominic Williams had come through with crucial internal information. Using his position as guest services manager, he had accessed Bradley Reynolds' employment history, which revealed a disturbing pattern. Over the past 18 months, Bradley had been the subject of 7 formal complaints regarding discriminatory treatment, all filed by passengers of color in premium cabins. Each complaint had been resolved with a brief retraining session and, in some cases, temporary reassignment. More damning still, Dominic provided a copy of an internal training document titled Premium Passenger Profile Management, which included guidelines for handling verification challenges with passengers who may not match typical premium passenger demographics. The document stopped short of explicitly mentioning race, but the implications were clear. "This is the smoking gun," Jasmine told Jordan when he returned from a conference session. "They've institutionalized profiling under the guise of passenger management." Jordan examined the document. "And look who signed off on this policy, Marcus Jennings, VP of Customer Experience, the same executive who was supposed to speak at this conference." As they compiled evidence, Premium Airlines attempted damage control. They announced an internal investigation led by their own legal team and released a more detailed statement acknowledging that the Washington twins had indeed been correctly seated and that the confrontation failed to meet our service standards. Their efforts gained little traction. The story had evolved beyond a single incident to expose what appeared to be a systematic problem within the airline industry. Other carriers were now facing scrutiny as minority passengers shared similar experiences across multiple airlines. That afternoon, a new development broke. A business news outlet published an investigative piece revealing that Richard and Catherine Whitman weren't just random passengers. Richard was golfing buddies with James Harper, Premium's Senior Vice President of Operations. Text messages obtained by the outlet showed Harper had instructed the LAX station manager to make sure the Whitmans get the bulkhead seats they prefer, despite their actual assignments. "This explains why Bradley was so insistent," Jordan noted. "He was following instructions from senior management to accommodate the Whitmans at our expense." The revelation shifted the narrative once again. What had initially seemed like individual bias now appeared to involve preferential treatment orchestrated at the executive level, with the Washington twins being targeted specifically because they occupied seats promised to friends of senior management. As the investigation deepened, Jasmine received an unexpected call from a law firm representing a group of Premium Airlines employees. "Ms. Washington? This is Patricia Alvarez from Rodriguez and Alvarez. I represent 23 current and former Premium employees who've witnessed or been instructed to participate in discriminatory practices. They'd like to speak with you confidentially." This connection proved invaluable. The employees, including flight attendants, gate agents, and customer service representatives, described a culture where accommodating white Premium passengers at the expense of minority travelers was an unwritten expectation. Several shared stories of being reprimanded for not being discerning about who belonged in Premium cabins. By evening, the twins had compiled enough evidence to justify a formal legal complaint. Jasmine drafted a preliminary filing alleging systemic discrimination and requesting class action status on behalf of all affected passengers. Before proceeding, however, she received another call, this one from the Department of Transportation. "Ms. Washington, this is Deputy Director Henderson from the DOT's Office of Aviation Consumer Protection. We've been monitoring the situation with Premium Airlines and would like to speak with you about a potential regulatory investigation." The government's interest elevated the case to a new level. A DOT investigation could result in substantial fines and mandatory compliance measures that would affect not just Premium but potentially set new standards for the entire industry. While Jasmine briefed the DOT officials, Jordan attended a dinner with tech industry leaders where the Premium controversy dominated conversation. Several CEOs shared their own experiences with discrimination while traveling, despite their professional success. "It doesn't matter if you're worth millions or run a Fortune 500 company," remarked one prominent tech founder. "To some people, your skin color still determines where you belong." As the evening progressed, Jordan's phone buzzed with an urgent message from Jasmine, "Check your email now." He excused himself and opened the message she had forwarded, an anonymous tip from someone identifying as a Premium Airlines customer service employee. Attached was a recording of a training session where supervisors explicitly instructed representatives on how to handle complaints from minority passengers. "Remember, these situations require careful management," a male voice explained on the recording. "When Premium passengers of color file complaints about discriminatory treatment, use the phrase, 'We take your concerns seriously,' but avoid any language that acknowledges specific wrongdoing. Offer standard compensation packages, but escalate only if the passenger has substantial social media following or legal representation." The recording continued with specific scripts for managing expectations of minority complainants versus preserving relationships with white premium passengers who lodged similar complaints. Jordan forwarded the recording to several trusted journalists who had been covering the story. By morning, portions of the audio had been broadcast nationally, causing another seismic shift in the narrative. Premium Airlines board of directors called an emergency meeting. The company's stock continued its freefall as major corporate clients publicly suspended their contracts. #boycott premium was now trending globally. What had begun as a confrontation over airplane seats had evolved into a watershed moment for corporate accountability. As Jasmine prepared for a press conference alongside the DOT officials and Jordan finalized his remarks for the panel discussion, they recognized that their stand had sparked something much larger than themselves, a long overdue reckoning with how institutions perpetuate discrimination even in supposedly premium spaces. On the fourth morning after the incident, Jasmine Washington's phone rang at 6:17 a.m. The caller ID showed unknown, but something told her to answer. "Ms. Washington?" The voice was female, hesitant. "My name is Vanessa Taylor. I was a team leader in Premium Airlines Executive Resolution Department until yesterday." Jasmine was immediately alert, reaching for her voice recorder. "Go ahead, Ms. Taylor. I was terminated last night. They're calling it a restructuring, but it happened right after I questioned how we were handling your case." Vanessa's voice trembled slightly. "I couldn't sleep thinking about what I've been part of. I need to share what's been happening behind the scenes." Over the next 30 minutes, Vanessa detailed the internal chaos at Premium Airlines. Since the Washington twins' complaint went viral, executives have been scrambling to contain the damage while destroying evidence. "They held an all-hands meeting yesterday where our VP explicitly told us to clean up our communications about passenger demographics," Vanessa explained. "IT was instructed to purge certain keywords from the internal messaging system." "Do you have documentation of this?" Jasmine asked, her attorney instincts kicking in. "Better. I have recordings," Vanessa replied. "Michigan is a one-party consent state for recording, and our call center is based in Detroit. I've been recording troubling directives for months as protection." The recordings Vanessa provided were damning. In one, a senior director instructed customer service managers on handling complaints from minority passengers. "These situations need to be managed efficiently. Offer the standard compensation package, express appropriate concern, but contain the situation. We don't need these complaints escalating to social or traditional media." Another recording captured Thomas Walker, the CEO, instructing executives to minimize the Washington situation and avoid any acknowledgement of systemic issues. He specifically stated, "This needs to be framed as an isolated incident with a few problematic employees, not a reflection of our company culture." Most disturbing was a recording of a training session where representatives were taught to categorize complaints using a color-coded system. Complaints from passengers with names that suggested minority status were flagged for special handling designed to prevent escalation rather than resolve underlying issues. "They called it expectation management," Vanessa explained bitterly. In practice, it meant minority passengers received superficial responses while white passengers got actual resolution. By the time Jasmine met Jordan for breakfast, she had already forwarded the recordings to their legal team and trusted journalists with clear instructions: hold until noon for maximum impact. "This changes everything," Jordan said after listening to portions of the recordings. "We're no longer talking about individual bias or even departmental practices. This goes all the way to the top." Jasmine nodded grimly. "And it's not just Premium." Vanessa mentioned that these practices are considered industry standard. She previously worked for 2 other major airlines with similar policies. As they strategized over breakfast, Dominic Williams texted them, "Emergency board meeting called for 10 a.m. Executives in panic mode. Word is major shareholders demanding Walker's resignation." The conference's panel discussion on diversity and inclusion in corporate travel was scheduled for 2 p.m. Originally, Premium's VP of Customer Experience was supposed to participate, but he had withdrawn after the controversy erupted. The airline had instead sent their chief diversity officer, Imani Jackson, a recent hire with little actual authority, according to Dominic. When the Washington twins arrived at the panel venue, they were surprised to find the room had been moved to the main auditorium to accommodate overwhelming interest. What was planned as a modest breakout session had transformed into the conference's most anticipated event. At noon, precisely as planned, major news outlets simultaneously published stories featuring Vanessa Taylor's recordings. The timing couldn't have been more devastating for Premium Airlines. Their stock immediately plunged another 15%, triggering a temporary trading halt. Social media exploded with fresh outrage. Corporate clients began publicly announcing the permanent termination of their contracts. The hashtag Premium Lies joined hashtag Diamond But Disrespected in the trending topics. Imani Jackson, Premium's chief diversity officer, approached the twins before the panel. "I want you to know I had no idea about any of this," she said, visibly shaken. "I was brought in 4 months ago to improve the company's diversity image, but I've been systematically excluded from policy discussions and given no actual authority." "Are you still planning to defend Premium on the panel?" Jasmine asked. Imani straightened her shoulders. "No. I'm planning to tell the truth, whatever it costs me." The panel discussion became a watershed moment. Before a packed audience of technology and business leaders, Imani Jackson publicly acknowledged the systemic discrimination within Premium Airlines, describing how her role had been created as window dressing rather than to drive real change. Jordan spoke eloquently about how their experience reflected broader patterns of exclusion across industries. "When we talk about diversity in tech, we often focus on hiring practices," he noted. "But exclusion happens in every space where power and privilege operate, including at 36,000 feet. Jasmine presented a legal framework for accountability, explaining how corporate cultures enable discrimination even without explicit racist policies. "Plausible deniability is built into these systems," she explained. "No one ever says, 'discriminate against these passengers.' Instead, they create frameworks for passenger profile management or expectation calibration that achieve the same result while maintaining legal cover." As the panel concluded, Jasmine received an urgent text from their attorney, DOT, announcing formal investigation into Premium Airlines at 5 p.m. press conference. "They want you both there." The Department of Transportation's announcement was unprecedented in its scope. Rather than focusing solely on the Washington incident, the investigation would examine Premium Airlines' entire customer service structure, training protocols, and complaint resolution systems, with particular attention to potential civil rights violations. "This investigation represents our commitment to ensuring all air travelers are treated with dignity and respect, regardless of their race, color, or national origin," stated the Transportation Secretary. Following the DOT announcement, Premium's board of directors released a terse statement. "In light of recent developments, Thomas Walker has stepped down as CEO, effective immediately. The board is committed to addressing serious concerns about company practices and will cooperate fully with regulatory investigations." That evening, as the twins prepared to return to their hotel, they were approached by a group of flight attendants from various airlines who had attended the conference specifically to hear them speak. "What you've done doesn't just affect Premium," said one veteran flight attendant. "You're changing how every airline will have to operate. We've known about these problems for years but didn't have the power to challenge them. Thank you for taking a stand." As news of the CEO's resignation and the DOT investigation dominated headlines, Jasmine received another call, this time from a senior partner at one of the country's most prestigious class action firms. "Ms. Washington, we've been following your situation closely and reviewing the evidence you've compiled. We'd like to represent you and other affected passengers in a class action against Premium Airlines. With the evidence you've already gathered, we believe this could be a landmark case for consumer rights and anti-discrimination law." That night, as the twins discussed next steps, they reflected on how far the situation had escalated from a confrontation over airplane seats. "Did you ever imagine it would come to this?" Jordan asked. "Honestly? Yes," Jasmine replied. Not the specifics, but the pattern is familiar. Organizations resist acknowledging systemic problems until the cost of denial exceeds the cost of change. We just helped tip that balance. So what happens now? Jasmine considered the question. Now we make sure this isn't just about one airline or one incident. We use this moment to push for industry-wide standards and accountability measures that protect everyone. As they spoke, Jasmine's phone buzzed with a news alert. Premium Airlines had called another emergency board meeting for 7 a.m. the following day. According to sources close to the board, they would be discussing comprehensive structural changes to address the growing crisis. The turning point had arrived. What began as discrimination against two passengers had exposed a culture of systematic bias, triggering a reckoning that would reshape not just one company but potentially an entire industry. And it had all started because the Washington twins refused to give up their rightfully assigned seats. 3 months after the incident on Flight 237, Jasmine and Jordan Washington stood in the Premium Airlines headquarters lobby in Atlanta, surrounded by reporters and cameras. They were there for the official announcement of the Premium Accountability Initiative, a comprehensive overhaul of the company's policies, training, and corporate culture. This is a historic day, announced Gabrielle Rodriguez, Premium Airlines' newly appointed CEO, the first woman of color to lead a major U.S. airline. What happened to Ms. and Mr. Washington exposed deeply problematic practices within our company. Today, we're not just apologizing again for that incident, we're unveiling structural changes to ensure it never happens again. The journey to this moment had been intense and transformative, not just for the Washington twins but for Premium Airlines and the entire aviation industry. 1 week after the DOT announced its investigation, Premium's board had made the dramatic decision to terminate the entire executive team of its customer service department, 12 senior managers who had implemented and enforced the discriminatory policies exposed by Vanessa Taylor's recordings. Bradley Reynolds and Melissa Turner, the flight attendants involved in the original incident, had been suspended pending a separate internal review. Thomas Walker, the former CEO, had resigned in disgrace. Subsequent reporting revealed he had personally approved the passenger profile management system that institutionalized discriminatory practices under the guise of customer service. The Department of Transportation's investigation had expanded beyond Premium to examine similar practices at other major carriers, sending shockwaves through the industry. 3 other airlines proactively announced reviews of their own policies, clearly fearing they might be next. The class action lawsuit had been officially filed, with over 2,800 affected passengers joining as plaintiffs. Premium's initial attempt to settle quickly was rejected when the Washington twins insisted on structural reforms rather than just financial compensation. Money doesn't solve systemic problems, Jasmine had stated in a widely quoted interview. We're not interested in enriching ourselves while leaving the underlying issues intact for the next generation to face. Under immense pressure from shareholders, regulatory agencies, and public opinion, Premium Airlines had ultimately agreed to a settlement that included both financial compensation and binding commitments to structural change. Now, standing in the airline's headquarters, the twins listened as CEO Rodriguez outlined those changes. First, we've completely redesigned our training programs with input from diversity experts and affected passengers, including Ms. and Mr. Washington. Every employee, from baggage handlers to board members, will undergo comprehensive anti-bias training developed by leading experts in the field. Second, we're implementing transparent reporting on passenger complaints involving potential discrimination, with quarterly public disclosures and independent auditing. Third, we've created a new passenger advocacy office with actual authority to investigate complaints and implement changes. This office will report directly to the board, not to management, ensuring true independence. Fourth, we're revising all policies related to premium cabin service to ensure consistent treatment of all passengers regardless of race, gender, or other protected characteristics. Finally, we're establishing the Premium Airlines Diversity in Aviation Scholarship, which will provide full tuition and mentoring for students from underrepresented backgrounds pursuing careers in aviation. As Rodriguez continued detailing the changes, Jordan leaned over to whisper to his sister, "Not bad for two passengers who refused to move seats." Jasmine smiled, though her expression remained determined. "This is just one company. We still have work to do." Following the press conference, the Washington twins were invited to tour the airline's new training facility, where flight attendants and gate agents would undergo the revised curriculum. The walls displayed a prominently featured case study titled Flight 237, How Bias Impacts Service, using the twins' experience as a teaching tool. Dominic Williams, now promoted to director of the new Passenger Advocacy Office, led the tour. "Your stand changed everything," he told them privately. "People who've worked here for decades say they've never seen such a complete transformation of company culture." 6 months after the incident, the Washington twins boarded another Premium Airlines flight, this time from New York to Chicago for a speaking engagement. The difference in their experience was stark. The diverse flight crew greeted them warmly, the boarding process was smooth, and their Diamond Elite status was acknowledged without question. The flight attendant serving their cabin, a young black woman named Tanya, recognized them immediately. "You two changed my working life," she told them quietly during a quiet moment in the flight. "Before your case, I was considering leaving aviation altogether because of how I was treated by both passengers and management. Now, for the first time, I feel supported when issues arise." Throughout the cabin, they noticed subtle but significant changes: diverse passengers in premium seats being treated with the same deference as their white counterparts, crew members following consistent protocols regardless of who they were addressing, and a noticeable emphasis on respectful, equitable service. 1 year to the day after the original incident, Jasmine and Jordan Washington received the National Consumer Rights Award for their advocacy. The ceremony, attended by leaders from across the travel industry, celebrated not just their personal stand but the broader movement for accountability they had helped catalyze. What began as discrimination against two passengers revealed a system designed to maintain inequity, Jordan noted in his acceptance speech. "But it also showed that when we refuse to accept discriminatory treatment, when we document it, expose it, and demand better, real change is possible." Jasmine followed with remarks that looked toward the future. "Premium Airlines is transforming, but this is just the beginning. True equity means every traveler can move through the world with dignity, whether in first class or economy, whether flying for business or pleasure. The work continues, and we're committed to seeing it through." As they concluded their remarks to a standing ovation, premium cabin crews from 12 major airlines stood together at the back of the room, a visual testament to the industry-wide impact of their stand. The Washington twins' experience had transformed from a moment of discrimination to a movement for accountability. Their refusal to give up their rightfully assigned seats had exposed deeply entrenched biases, triggered regulatory action, and ultimately helped reshape corporate culture not just at Premium Airlines but across the industry. As the twins often reminded audiences in their speaking engagements, change doesn't come from accepting the status quo. It comes from those moments when we stand firm and say, "No, this isn't right, and we won't pretend it is." That evening, following the award ceremony, they received a message from a young black student who had received one of the first Premium Airlines Diversity in Aviation scholarships. Attached was a photo of her in a pilot's training uniform, standing proudly beside a Premium Airlines aircraft. "Because you stood your ground," she wrote, "I can now pursue my dreams without some of the barriers that existed before. Thank you for not moving from those seats." What did you think of this story? Have you ever witnessed or experienced discrimination while traveling or in other customer service situations? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might find it meaningful. Your support helps us continue to share these important stories about justice, accountability, and positive change. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and I look forward to bringing you more compelling stories soon. The Washington twins' story teaches us that confronting discrimination requires both courage and strategy. By documenting their experience, gathering evidence, and refusing to accept superficial solutions, they transformed an individual injustice into systemic change. Their success demonstrates that accountability is possible when we stand firm, build coalitions, and demand more than token apologies. True change happens not when companies fear bad publicity, but when they're forced to examine and reform their underlying structures. The twins recognize that meaningful transformation requires persistence, documentation, and refusing to settle for quick fixes that leave harmful systems intact. Their experience shows that individual stands, when strategically leveraged, can catalyze industry-wide reform, proving that justice, while not automatic, is achievable when we refuse to accept the status quo of discrimination in any form. What's a time when you stood up against unfair treatment or witnessed someone else doing so? Share your experiences in the comments below. Did this story remind you of situations you've faced in travel, retail, or other service industries? If you believe more stories like this need to be told, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue highlighting these crucial narratives of resistance and change. Share this video with someone who might need encouragement to stand their ground when facing discrimination. Remember, every time we refuse to accept mistreatment, we create ripples that can transform entire systems. Thank you for watching, and may you find the courage to stand firm in your own rightful place, wherever that may be.